Marvel Studios and producer of Captain America Civil War, Kevin Feige. Also, Emily VanCamp is up next. Come on out. Hey, good to see you.
We're doing all this like live.
Also, Mr. Don Cheadle. Iron Man himself. It's all about Team Iron Man right now. Mr. Robert Downey Jr.
You can do it back there.
So sexy.
I'll let you go.
So sexy. No,
Tough act to follow, but I know this guy can do it. Mr. Paul Bettany. And then last but certainly not least, the director, Anthony Russo.
I'm still reeling from the fact that Paul Bettany was Jarvis and now he's Vision. I mean, there's something. Well, if you just stop and you go, so here's what's going on with Tony, you go, wait a minute, did he make a guy? Look at him.
Yeah, Dad.
So proud of you.
Dad.
As far as the emo arc of Tony over these bunch of years, I think anyone who sticks around for more than a minute and joins the party here, it's all about, and particularly as I'm sure either Russo would attest, it's all about, that's where I think Marvel has really done its smartest moves, you know, is making sure that there's a real emotional impact to what's going on. And I am no exception.
Oh, no, I can talk to, look, every movie, like, I think part of the popularity of big special effects driven movies these days is the fact that the technology has reached such an incredibly high level. And every movie, every couple years it changes. And this movie, you know, you sort of reap the benefits and you sort of push forward on every film. I mean, this movie has a very remarkable sequence, I think, where Robert Downey Jr. plays a 20-year-old man, which is pretty incredible.
I don't.
Just suck it in.
Wait a second. I don't think it's that hard to believe.
It's happening. It's happening.
I mean, he plays someone who's around the age he was when we all first saw him on the screen.
No.
So it's like it's
so nostalgic.
Yeah, it's a pretty
very
amazing,
expensive nostalgia, I'm told.
It was very. Look at it. It took us months and months of work on that shot to make it work. It's very complicated, taking the human face and changing the human face in a way that looks realistic. And in fact, it was the last shot we completed in the movie. Just dropped into the movie maybe 5 days ago.
On Robert's birthday.
Look at that! Look at that! Look at that!
Synchronicity abounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy late birthday, eternal youth for you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's what these 3 tables are for, any late presents. I'm watching you.
What do you get the man that has everything, guys? Come on.
Stupid question. I got a bunch of questions too. Let me know when you're done.
Please, be my guest, sir.
Oh, what was it like just hanging from a wire for 6 or 8 days? I remember seeing you. There's an entire week where I just saw you suspended about 40 feet in the air.
Well, I really enjoy wire work. You know, I like the freedom of it. I dream of flying, but you have to balance that out with being suspended by your testicles. It's really a double-edged sword. It's really pardon the.
Anthony, your brother said right before we went down, he said, "Please watch your language."
I haven't said anything. Oh, I said testicles.
That wire work that you're referring to was also done in the Georgia sun in the summer, which was also a pretty remarkable thing.
It's extraordinary. You know, we all got out there, and you're there in the airport, and you're thinking, how are they going to realize this epic battle visually? And you look at everybody, and look around, and everybody's in their costume, and they look like superheroes and movie stars. And then about 5 minutes later, in 105 degrees, they look a lot less like movie stars, a lot less like superheroes.
And that's where the visual effect work comes in.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if I'm jealous of the heat necessarily, but I'm in awe always. I'm in awe when they're in costume. I'm in awe when they're out of costume. And I've said it before, and it's only getting more and more so as cast members keep joining. There's never been an ensemble like this in cinematic history. It's really astounding. We break it up into 2 panels today because everyone is a headliner, and and getting them in a room together is pretty awe-inspiring.
I think it's a photo finish, but I think that maybe Chadwick, with the whole not being able to breathe business is.
You can't tell with Paul because he's British. It's hard to know exactly how excruciating. We should all be a bit more like Paul. That's all I can say. Last question.
I'm stealing that.
Sure. Look, it was very important to all of us, all the filmmakers, the folks at Marvel, Kevin, my brother, myself, the writers. Look, we knew we wanted to tell a really complicated story between Captain America and Iron Man in this movie, a story that went to very difficult, dark places. We're big fans of balance in storytelling. We like really well-rounded movies, like movies that make us laugh and cry. So for us, it became very important to find a way to change the dynamics and modulate the tone in the movie by bringing in characters that didn't have the same emotional investment that all the Avengers had in the events that were unfolding, because they're very serious events, complicated events. So to bring in characters like Spider-Man, like Ant-Man into the movie who don't have that baggage, it gave us an opportunity as storytellers to sort of bring new colors into the film at a deep place in the movie, lighter colors, more whimsical colors, and I think it just helped balance that big fight out that they all have with one another at the airport in a really nice way. We tried to find very organic ways that those characters found their ways into the movie, both of those characters, and it was just, I know Kevin can elaborate more on the decision. He was very critically central to making it happen. I don't know that a lot of people could have pulled off getting Spider-Man in this movie except for Kevin Feige. So
I think it was a good answer, right?
I want Kevin to walk back into the thunderous applause he deserves. That was tepid.
No.
I was really
I can't
pissed off.
Take it up.
Thank God somebody finally laid it bare.
Because Tony has a lot of new suits since we first saw him compared to.
Yeah, I think we'll see. It's not over unless it is, because I haven't seen the movie. Do I live? Does War Machine live? That's hubris. You'll see in the next one. Wait a minute. I think there are potentially more tricks up War Machine's sleeve. We'll see. Well, I just think from my perspective, it's really interesting because it's not until we see usually the completed project that we know actually what all has gone on. Often it's these disparate moments that we're trying to focus on, and we'll see previs and we'll the Russos will give us a good explanation of what's happening, but it's not until you see it all together that it's like, wow. Yeah. It's really an amazing technological feat that it all works.
So just for the record, there's an airport sequence in this movie.
That's exactly right.
Looking forward.
Excitingly named airport sequence.
Airport sequence. Leipzig, in fact.
Maybe on the next panel.
A couple of meatheads on that panel.
Lots of burpee competitions and pull-up stuff. You don't even know.
Just ask me about push-ups on the next panel and see what people say.
In seriousness, look, the movies are hard to make. They're long because they're complicated movies. So you're together for a long time. Because of the very unique storytelling that's happening in the MCU, these actors, filmmakers get together over multiple films, over multiple years. So it's a very unique working experience. Joe and I always joke, we worked in TV for years, but we never got a show to run as long as our run at Marvel.
It was relatively early on in the development process of the movie that Joe and Anthony and our screenwriters Chris and Steve thought it would be very valuable to have somebody, sort of in the way that Anthony was talking about Spidey and Ant-Man, people that weren't quite as invested. We wanted somebody who perhaps was invested but didn't have allegiances to any one side. Who was essentially in it for very personal reasons himself. We knew we wanted to make a Black Panther movie at some point, But at that time, we weren't sure exactly when that would be. But as these discussions were going on, and we thought, I think we're going to bring Black Panther into this movie, I'm not kidding when I say Chadwick was the only choice. You know, his performance in 42, his performance in Get On Up, how different those performances are. And my memory is we called him on the conference room speaker when we were developing the movie and got him while he was somewhere in Switzerland or something at a premiere for Get On Up. And he was in his car, either about to get out or had just gotten back in. And we said, have you ever heard of Black Panther? And he went, yes, yes. Why are you asking me that? And we said, do you want to play the part? And he was very excited. And it happened very, very quickly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I was definitely slightly intimidated in the first one, in Winter Soldier, and you know, just kind of getting used to it. I think that lent itself well for the character. She was sort of more in like a rookie stage, and it's great to see her come back in a little bit more of like a mature light. She's, you know, confident
And she's still good with guns, girl.
Still good with guns. But yeah, she's a great character to play. I'm having so much fun with her, and you know, she gets to kick a little butt in this one, and you know, it's great fun.
In all seriousness, I would say it varies. I would say the characters don't know what's supposed to be happening to them, so I don't know how helpful it would be. And sometimes there's a long play that I think Paul knew for quite a while. Vision was coming down the pipeline and had to keep it a secret for quite a while. Robert's very good at keeping secrets, so we can tell him anything at all times.
Locked vault, that one.
It really does vary. There's some big picture things. I remember pitching sort of the big twist of Winter Soldier to Chris Evans when we were shooting the final scenes in New York on the first Avengers film. So there are long things like that, and then they're shorter. Can you come over right now? Moments.
Demands of popularity resurgent? Look, you know, you can answer that question, I think, in a lot of different ways, but, you know, we live in a very complicated world, and it seems like it gets more and more complicated every day, and I think there's lots of signs of that we're all experiencing and going through and struggling with. You know, there's something very reassuring about having a fantasy film that can deal with a lot of these issues, but in a way that's one step removed. You know, it's hard to deal with reality sometimes when it's in your face. You need a little buffer from it. You need to place it within a context where your imagination can roam and your emotions can flow in a way that's maybe not as complicated or threatening as in your real life. So I do think, especially with these Captain America movies, because I think there's a political dimension that's like inherent with the character because of his origin, his name, etc. I don't know, I think maybe it provides us a space to play in and explore that's a little safer in some ways than reality.
It's an incredibly smart answer.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you, sir. That's an incredible compliment coming from this.
No, I
genius.
just sound, as being British, I just sound smart. I left school at 16, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just saying, you presented it in a smart way.
It just sounded smart.
Yeah, it sounded smart.
Yeah, it sounds.
That's my Cleveland accent.
How does it feel like for Tony Stark to go read all the reviews and fans' reactions saying the best thing in this movie is Spider-Man?
More importantly, if I wear these glasses for 30 more seconds, I have to keep them. This Holland kid couldn't hit his ass with both hands until I started working closely. Well, first of all, I haven't read that, so I feel like you just wrote it. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 51, and only sociopaths are still so self-centered in the extreme that they can't make space for other people. I think what I've learned slowly over time is that once you make some space for yourself, it's all about the other people that you're working with. And I think Tom did a great job. I couldn't be more excited than for Chadwick, and I love that you're not just a voice now. But I think that, well, first of all, you know what it's like. You have no idea what it's like, I'll tell you that. On the inside, casting one of these characters, Emily, it's a whole thing. I mean, lives are on the line, you would imagine. And it was such a big coup, and he's really demonstrated why he was the right guy for the job.
Robert was a big part of it. I think we've talked about this before, but
not enough for my taste.
We go back to the question about who knows what in the process.
Called Robert relatively early saying, I think there's a chance we might get Spider-Man in this movie. And his reaction was actually one just like a fanboy, which was unbelievably excited for what that could mean for this movie. And then I would, a few weeks after that said, hey, we've sort of culled it down to about 5 finalists. Could we bring them to Atlanta, and would you mind reading with all 5 of them? And he did, and then we culled it down a little bit more, and he did, and that was how Tom came to the top. Then Tom and one other person came back and read did more of a stunt test, in which Chris Evans was gracious enough to read opposite him. But it was fun seeing that Robert was invested, and to see Tom react to Robert, which is not dissimilar from the way Peter was reacting to Tony, was actually quite cool.
I will add this. I mean, obviously the character has a very special relationship with Robert's character in the movie, and most of his work, the vast majority of his work, is with Robert. I mean, it's just like Kevin said. Robert was incredibly generous in terms of going through the process.
Why didn't you know all these reviews were going to come out?
I mean, I figured helping us all figure out who the right person was for the role. But not only that, once Tom got cast, to all of our delight, then working with Tom, a young performer, and sort of bringing him into this very complicated fold with all these very sophisticated performers and pedigreed performers. And I mean, I remember when he did the big bedroom scene with Tom, and I remember Joe and I sitting at the monitors and just reflecting on the idea that, wow, like the greatest gift that you can give an actor is to be in a scene with Robert Downey Jr. I mean, it's
in a bedroom scene.
It's like,
honestly, he's a very talented performer, very improvisational performer, and he knows how to pull the best out of people who are working with him.
Let me give you a counterpoint to this.
I wanted to say, because I didn't get to, and I've seen the movie, Rhodey and Tony have had this kind of ongoing arc, but then there's all this bad guy and all this stuff that has to happen. And what I really appreciate is, and I credit Kevin and the Russos for really making sure it happens this time, is you really get back to this baseline, ongoing, complicated friendship that they have, and it's obviously challenged to a different degree. And I remember when we were doing that kind of resolution scene at the end and all that stuff. And that was before I saw Miles Ahead and realized that not only did I already thought you were great, but now I realize you're probably the most talented person I've ever been working with in a long time.
Thank you, man.
Present company included.
I'm just happily surprised again.
Thank you, man.
All right. Will it forward?
Kevin, just moving forward, let's not.
I'll give this to the valet on the way out.
It's a complicated question. Look, we thought about. My brother and I always say that we love action. We're action fetishists. But, it's like for us, action always needs to be driven by a sense of character and a sense of story, beat by beat by beat, through the action sequence, or else you just lose interest in it. It has no value to the storytelling. So we looked for opportunities in the movie to play with these rich, complicated relationships. There's a very interesting relationship between Paul's character in this movie and Lizzie Olsen's character in the movie, Scarlet Witch and Vision. That begins to develop an interesting, complicated relationship, and to put them on opposite sides, in the battle was very exciting to us because it sort of interfered with what was happening, the dynamic between these characters and watching them push that forward. I mean, what did that? Just to ask you, Paul, like, how did that sort of like inform your experience of it, having a personal relationship with a character while at the same time finding yourself on the opposite side in a fight.
I think it was a really, really interesting idea. You find Vision at this, in Age of Ultron, he is just born and omnipotent yet naive, and then in this movie, you find him trying to figure out what humanity is and how you have loyalty, because logic doesn't afford loyalty. So I think he's really interested in working out what love is, and there's this woman who has a similar problem that he's facing, which is he doesn't know the limits of his power, and nor does she. And of course, love can make you feel loyal. And at the end of this movie, I think it's a double-edged sword, because you see this his response at finally having a human response is he makes a big mistake, which is interesting, and I thought it was a really deft piece of storytelling. So it was really fun to do, especially moving forward.
Well, that's what, for us, that's the heart of any conflict in a movie, whether it be a dramatic conflict or an action conflict, or that's what you run at.
Yeah, look, I love it. I love all the physical stuff, and it's brilliantly done in these movies. But I also think, what's great about these films is you're also, developing these characters over time, and so that's one element, that's great. But I also really enjoyed getting to really share Sharon with the audience as well, because we only knew her as Agent 13, and sort of explore that relationship with Steve. That was really interesting to me, because their relationship in the comic books was great and complicated and interesting, and we're sort of just delving into that now, which was really fun. So I love all of that stuff. All of it together is great.
Well, I think so much of the credit for your first question, or the success with balancing those characters, goes to Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, who really know that you talk about Spidey. Screen time doesn't equal, it's quality, not quantity, right? If people have moments that land, if people have a laugh, if people have a cheer, that's sometimes all you need to say, this character's been serviced, let's move on to bigger story. And Joe and Anthony are always so adamant, rightfully so, that the overall story is being serviced as opposed to every single character in the film. I think that's how you take this many characters and balance a singular, relatively simple story, and have them there, and each of their moments where they earn a laugh or earn a tear or earn a cheer serve the very specific story at hand.
Well, I watched the movie with a stopwatch to see. No?
Everybody does.
Nobody? I'm the only one who does that?
No, I do it too.
Gotcha. Well, I know that Rhodey's always trying to, and in this movie too, he's always struggling with what does he owe as a serviceman, and what is his duty and chain of command, and how must that be protected and honored. But also I'm in this team of people who, some of them are, have, as Paul was saying, no limit to their power, and where are the checks and balances, and that's something that's obviously central to this film as well. But I think that's an understandable sort of fence that he's on, and how do you friendship versus chain of command, and all those things that I think Rhodey's trying to balance as he goes forward with this group of guys.
I just think that for Vision, that the synthetic people around the world can, yearning to break free from those shackles of expectation, they really get behind my character. I think I speak for them.
Your TVQ in the mannequin world is unbelievable.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right?
How exactly did Tony know about Spider-Man, and does how he know mean that he is aware of the other New York heroes?
Listen, just because you know more about stuff you know what? As a matter of fact, I embrace you. You should find me. Tell me everything I don't know. I have an incomplete education. Which brings me back to this is why I've always continued to like to play Tony. Tony is a guy who's essentially, he's pretty broken and narcissistic, and over the course of all these movies, he's kind of waking up to that and realizing it, and is trying to heal and become a better person. Which I think you could say across the board for pretty much all the characters. With me being, I guess, the least informed version. Thank you for that startling bit of feedback.
We were picking up Peter Parker's story at a point after which he's gotten his powers, but before which he's fully sort of come out with them.
Pulled you right out of
and so he had, in our storytelling, he has been doing some things in New York, and there's been these sort of Sasquatch-like videos of what he's been doing that's been showing up. You've heard word of mouth that something's happening. There's this very strange thing happening. So it's kind of something that's in the rumor mill, but nobody has been able to identify who exactly this is yet or how it's happening, etc. But of course, Tony Stark being who Tony Stark is, he's one step ahead of everybody else.
All right, guys, that does it for Team Iron Man.
Thank you.
So Paul Bettany, Robert Downey Jr.,